Okay, hold on.
I'll make the music if you make it look good.
Okay, so I know this is like a video response like really late because it's like freaking October and this was posted in February, but it's like whatever. The thing is though, within your contradictions in Jeremiah, or I guess they're not your contradictions, they're the ones that other people have found that you used, it's all context, and I know you talk about that later after that, but it's all context. For example, in the verse 3, Jeremiah 3:12, God's talking to Israel, His people. I don't know if you know all of the history behind there, but God had a chosen people. It was Israel, basically there. So all His favor falls on them. When He talks to them in 3:12 and says, "I am merciful; I will not be angry with you forever," He's talking to a specific people. I will not be angry with you. The people group being Israel. That's just that simple. And then when you go to the next verse and you're talking about the contradictory part, when it says, "You have kindled an anger in me that will burn forever," He's actually talking to Judah, which is a completely different section of the people group. And He even mentions them in 3:12. Well, not 3:12, but it's mentioned. It actually mentions it in the verse before, in 3:11, when it says, "Even faithless Israel," which is the people He's talking about, "is less guilty than treacherous Judah," which is who He refers to later in 17 that you're in chapter 17. So it's not a contradiction because they're both clausatory terms towards separate people groups. If I say, I will never, I'm merciful towards you, or well, that's retarded. I wouldn't say that, but if I'm not going to be mad at you forever, and I say it to another person, you can't put that on you because I didn't say it to you. It's completely different. It's towards someone else. And then if I come to somebody else and say, I'm so pissed off at you, it's not even funny. That person, you can't, take what I said to that person and apply it to the other person because it doesn't work. It's clausatory. It goes, and if I say it to them, it's meant toward them. It can't be changed to somebody else. So it's not a contradiction. It's just, if you take the verse and just say that verse like you did, of course it sounds contradictory because that's all you read. But if you read it within the context, God's talking to two different people groups. So it's not contradictory. It's clausatory. It's completely different. By the way, I really like your impressions. They're good. Second of all, when you go on and talk about divorce, the contradiction that you see in Deuteronomy and in Luke. First of all, the Deuteronomy one is Moses. Moses says that, he writes it. Nowhere does it say that God says, "Okay, give them to this Moses." Moses just gets aggravated because everybody's complaining. And he's all these people, some of them went out. So Moses says, "You can do that. You can write a bill or whatever." What you're talking about in Luke is completely different. In Luke, Jesus is talking. Okay. Now, as you stated in your video, within the Christian thought, Jesus is the Son of God. And even deeper in theology, Jesus is God within the Trinitarian point of view, but that's not even going to that. So Jesus is God. Everything Jesus gets is from His Father, which is God. So within Luke, what Jesus is clarifying is that what Moses said isn't right, necessarily. Moses said what he said because of his circumstances and all this stuff around him. God, however, never said that. Jesus is sort of setting the record straight there by saying, "Look, I know you've heard this, but it's not true." That, once again, if I say something and somebody else comes along and says something, we're not the same person. You can't say that you can't put us in a group and say, "Okay, well, this is what they believe." Because if we say two different things, obviously we don't believe the same thing. Now, Jesus isn't saying that Moses is wrong in everything. Jesus is saying that in the divorce part, Moses is wrong. Moses did it. God did not tell him that. So Jesus is basically just setting the record straight, saying Moses is a man. He said this, but what God desires is this, which is not divorce. Now, with those two verses, after you point them out, you basically say, point out the reasons how Christians deal with those verses. And the third one is that we, claim that they're out of context. Yeah. And you act like you don't know what that means, but come on, man. You know what out of context means. I've already explained it. If Jesus says this and Moses says this, you can't say the same person said that. It's like you don't understand what misinterpretation is. But come on, man. We've all been misinterpreted. We've said something to somebody and somebody else gets offended. We go, I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to them. And I mean, that's misinterpreted. You know that. And that's basically what's going on here. He's talking to somebody else, or there's something else there. It's not like, I mean, come on. It's that simple. Now, obviously, there's a lot of faith in Christianity, and I'm not even going to deal with that section or anything like that. Because that's not the point. I'm just addressing the issue you brought up, which is the contradiction. And there aren't really any. As far as the other things you talk about, like the world having four corners, being held by pillars, history of 40 years taking the trip, whatever. There's a lot to cover there, obviously. The point of this video is just to talk about the verse contradictions. If you want to talk about the other ones, talk is what we'll do. I mean, I have no interest in arguing with you. I just want to discuss with you a little bit, and something, whatever. I mean. If you want to, you can. If not, it's cool too. Just looking for a discussion. But anyway, nice impressions. And dude, I admire the passion you put into your videos because you're obviously very into it against, religion in general, I guess. So talk to you later.
That was sick. That was good. Some of that was good. There's some good.